So with that being said, I'm really excited to get to our first speaker. So Eduardo is a chocolatier with training in Belgian. And besides LinkedIn, he has which he has to use for professional reasons, he doesn't have any other social media accounts. And he was going to be a doctor, but instead he decided to go to business school. Eduardo, come on up here and share your fuck up.
So, good evening. The decision to go to business school was the first one, by the way, but let's move on. So, I work at Microsoft. I am the SMB Tele Lead, so I take care of the call centers that serve the Canadian business in Prague, Morocco, and Manila. But I hope I can contribute a little bit with something for your lives today. Maybe you're not going to learn too much, but you're going to learn something about my life. I was born and raised in Brazil. This is from this funny accent come from. I had a very good education, but we're going to focus not in my professional career, but in the chocolate business that was the failure and was an interesting one. So the story starts when I was at university, and I really saved a lot of money to buy a motorcycle, and that was my freedom. So I wanted to go everywhere. I didn't want to be stuck in traffic, and in Brazil, the traffic is pretty bad. So I got a motorcycle, and I was really happy. It was the time I remember that I was happy the most for the first time. So, but there you go. Someone was waiting with a gun at my neighbor, and there my bike goes, 2 months and a half in. I didn't have insurance because insurance for motorcycles over there are very expensive, and I didn't know how I was going to be able to save money again, because it took me 2 years to save money for this motorcycle. And I thought, if I don't do anything, if I don't try to solve the problem in another way, I will not be able to get back and have a vehicle again. So there comes the idea. So why not start a chocolate business? Because it fails, I can eat it. So my whole family jumped on board because everybody loves chocolate. And there were some challenges to begin with because, unfortunately, I didn't have time. I had my university from 7:30 in the morning, about 1 o'clock. Then I had my internship at about 6 o'clock, and then I had to go to Alliance Française until about 9 o'clock, and there goes the day. So I enlisted my mother to go through some training and gave me the booklets. I bought some books, and a friend of mine taught me how to sell, basically meeting people and say, hey, here's some chocolate, pay me later. And everybody was coming back and asking for more and paying, trust me. So there was a problem statement because distribution is the secret of any business. So if you see Bill Gates, for example, the major driver was the fact that all software was going straight from the manufacturer, the OEM, with Windows, or sorry, at the time was DOS. So getting the distribution is key. And that's what I try to work on, but it was a new concept in Brazil at the time. Brazil never had fine chocolate. The economy was closed. You didn't have foreign products. So it was hard to try to crack new point of sales with that. Also, people love to eat chocolate. They just don't like to pay for it. So that was another problem. And obviously, I didn't have time. So I would have to start producing the chocolate from about 10 o'clock in the evening until about 3 o'clock, wake up at 6 and go back to university every day. But Saturdays and Sundays, where Saturday I would try to get new point of sales, and Sunday I would buy my supplies. I also tried different partnerships because I thought maybe I can do the famous 1 + 1 = 3 or more than 1. Basically, was the opposite. Every time I lost half of what I had. So, the fact is that at the end, I left university. I already had a car. And every time I would go back home, I had my pocket full of money. But I got a dream job at Unilever, and nobody refuses that. Who would refuse a dream job, right? So that means I had to keep on doing what I was doing with no time. So ended up that after 5 years at Unilever, the business kept on growing, and I had about 1 ton of chocolate stored in my bedroom, preparing for Easter, and I basically had to leave Unilever because I thought I was not able to have time to produce everything and sell. And it was a great success, so I didn't have money for advertisements, so I got a PR agency. They did an amazing job, but that was where things started not to work very well. So the whole business was at home. So my father didn't really like, he was a lawyer, and didn't think that having an illegal business at home was a great idea neither. So he should be in Canada anyway. So basically, they kicked me out, and I just was not ready for the fixed cost. Even though I had a lot of money from Easter, I didn't have enough. I didn't have any business plan or anything to be able to drive this through rent and taxes and the whole infrastructure that comes with the production outside the comfortable home. So I was not also ready for the corruption and all the time that it takes, because if you pay a corrupted official, they will come back every month like a mafia, and you need to keep on paying. So you waste a lot of time trying to sort these little problems that you don't expect. So I was able to break even in 2 years. It was a lot of fun, and so I was in the media. Yes, that was me. Yes. So I was able to get a brand that was well established, and I thought the dream was coming true. However, it's a little bit violent over there. So I had a gun in my head about 9 times. So I decided to move to Canada, and I was coming over in 1997, and I had to sell my business because my family, like my sister, was a doctor. She didn't want to take over, and nobody wanted to jump in. So I just got a down payment of $5,000 and came to Montreal. But then I never got the rest of the money. So I was going to open the same business over here, but then I was in Canada with no money, and I could not move forward. So meanwhile, the owners were grossly mismanaging. They hired their own friends and family for positions that didn't need, and neither they were not treating well suppliers, neither customers. And I had to accept that they would never pay anyway, and go back and start everything from scratch. I started as a waiter, went back to university, and rebuilt my life. But luckily, the area they were hiring at the time was for the Y2K, so I could at least have a focus on trying high tech, and that was what saved me and got into the business I am right now. And then Destiny, I sent a resume to Microsoft 3 years before they called me. So one day I just basically quit my job, moved, and I didn't even have a telephone. And they called my cell phone saying, hey, do you remember the resume you sent 3 years ago? Position is open. So now let's go a little bit through the lessons learned. The first one is pretty obvious. If you don't have capital, sure, today you have different ways to get capital, but it's going to be very hard. So I don't advise anybody to start a business with at least capital to run it and operate for 2 years. Hard work and discipline. I think several times if I didn't have discipline, that would have failed way earlier. And honestly, today, it's still what differentiates me from other people at Microsoft. So this is one of the most qualities that you should have. Margin, yeah, this dream that you are going to sell a lot for low margin, don't try at home. It's better to work out better margins, and if later you think you need to change strategy, it's a different story. Partners, so as I said, I had 3 partnerships, and so I had to restart from half 3 times. Not advised, and unless there is something that is really important for you. So think twice and be very careful. Lawyers, it's not because my father is a lawyer, or was, but this is the money well spent. It's actually an investment for your business, because if you have things in writing and proper, it is going to save you a lot. Friendship, investors and partnerships. So a little bit about the partners there, and a little bit about well, I'm saying that because some of the partners were best friends, and they ended up not talking to me anymore, even though they were wrong. But there's always 2 perspectives. So it's another thing that you need to think twice. Do you really want to get into a situation that you're going to lose your friend, or sometimes lose contact with your family member? And the last one, which is the best, is, you have to enjoy what you're doing. So I had the best time of my life after, when I bought the motorcycle. It was a fun job. So I was able to know a lot of people. I was able to have exposure to a lot of things that I could not have been exposed when I was working at Unilever. So thank you. I hope you enjoy a little bit. And there you go.
Thank you so much for sharing that story, Eduardo. I think what an amazing journey, all the way from Brazil, from a chocolate business to Canada and into high tech. I'm sure you guys are going to have a lot of great questions. So let's open it up, and we're going to have some mic runners come up and help us out. So who wants to ask the first question? Oh, and something that I'm going to note as well, as you ask your questions, make sure that the question itself is brief, just so we can get through as many as possible. Thank you.
So how did you establish a market for high-end chocolates in a country where everything's discount, kind of low-cost products?
So I developed the institutional market. So I basically was selling to advertising agencies, private banks, and places that they need to give gifts to their customers. So I was managing their customers' birthday list. So every time a customer would have their birthday, in the morning they would receive the chocolates and cards, etc. And then I look into the top supermarkets. So I was developing products for the top supermarkets and airlines or whatever was considered more high-end. Okay.
You said that I'm just over here on your left.
Yes.
You said that you had a gun to your head 9 times. If you feel comfortable, could you tell us about that? Like what happened, why?
So the first time was when I was, I don't know if that qualifies as a business failure, but I think I was 11 years old, so I had my money to buy the books at school, and between the bus stop and the school, they already stopped me there and took my money. So there were several instances. The one that I almost lost my life was actually with a motorcycle. They were pulling the trigger. Then I remembered to raise my hands, and then they left. But basically, 3 times was when I was a kid, so it was basically coming back home or going to school. So over there, we start younger, basically.
Thank you. Can I ask 2 questions?
Yes.
First, I was in Brazil 5 years ago in my business, and I learned one saying there, Brazil is the country of the future, and then you make a pose and say, and always will be. So in that regard, from the time you were there to the time now, what is the development? I mean, is it getting better to do business? I've heard there's a new president and kind of more business-friendly atmosphere. That's the first question. The second question is, from having absolute freedom to do whatever you want in your own business to having probably much less freedom now to work in Microsoft, how does it feel?
Okay, so I technically lost a lot of contact with Brazil, because the last time I went there was in 2006. My life is here now, and I know that my family and my friends that are there are not better off. They are worse than they were, and that has always been the case. Only the top 0.2% are better and better, and the rest just decreases over and over again. I think part of the fact that I have been at Microsoft for almost 10 years is because I am an entrepreneur at heart, and Microsoft allows you to be. So in the other companies I used to work, I could not be an entrepreneur. I had to stick with the guidance and stick with the process. So the business I drive at Microsoft that I have been driving for the last 4 years moved from $12 million to this year I'm going to deliver $71 million. So just because I can do whatever I want.
Thank you.
Welcome.
On a much, much lighter note, milk chocolate or dark chocolate?
So, okay, maybe I should start asking questions.
And there's a follow-up to it as well.
So, milk chocolate, but if you like chocolate, you like all of them. The sweetest chocolate, or the chocolate with more sugar content, is which one? I will give you the 3 choices, and you raise your hand. So, white. Okay. Milk. Less milk, okay. And dark. Oh, so looks like white seems to be the sweeter, but the one with most sugar content is the dark. Because chocolate is made of 3 parts, which is cocoa mass, cocoa butter, and milk. So dark chocolate is only cocoa mass and sugar. The white chocolate is only cocoa butter and milk. And the milk chocolate is the only one with the 3, which is also one of the best nutritional values. So what you understand about chocolate is what the media told you, not what it really is. Okay? So you finally learned something today, yeah! All right.
And the light follow-up to that is, what chocolate would you want us all to try?
I think first of all, if you really like chocolate, you need to go to a specific city in Belgium, which is called Bruges, which is a medieval city, and you just have one chocolate store after the other, and you basically can bring your insulin and go wherever you want. But if you really want to get into the classic of what chocolate is, I would go to Neuhaus. It's Neuhaus. I don't know if they are in Canada anymore, but they used to be, at least to be honest, one of the best qualities in variety within the classic chocolate. But unfortunately, you can try completely different things like the Mozart Klugels. You can go to Salzburg and try the original ones. So, we can stay here for the full night if you want. So there are several different chocolates and different combinations. So my favorites in general are the ones with wafer. So that was my first product. But if you look the classic, most probably Neuhaus will be your best.
So we'll do 2 more questions.
So I know you made a lot of your chocolates at home. Did you ever try to reach out to a manufacturer, or did you not do that because of capital?
So the chocolate world at the time was controlled by one single person, which was the guy who owns Suchard, Klaus Jacob. And he bought, initially he bought different Swiss manufacturers, then he lost it, and Kraft bought it, and then he decided he still wanted to control the chocolate world, so he bought the 2 major manufacturers, which was Callebaut in Belgium and Cacao Barry in France. They represent about 70% of the worldwide production. And the price and what the rest of the chain does was basically dictated by him. So it was very difficult to get an association with someone else. There were instances where I would go and pick up my order, and they would just tell me, hey, you know what? This other guy paid more, we sold to him. So whatever you would do was whatever he would allow us to do. So that's the other problem that's the other part that I didn't enjoy. Okay. One of my partners was actually one of the largest producers in Brazil at the time. It didn't work. Okay.
So now being in Canada for so long, will you take a chance of the chocolate business here in Canada?
I would definitely not try it at home. I will not try the chocolate business over here because it's about the same concept. People love to eat but don't like to buy. In Belgium, people get out of the bus before going home and buy a box of chocolate to eat with the family at night, but here it's not like that. So to start within the same concept again, especially with Cacao Barry still existing, I would not do. I think I also evolved to understand that this is not the right business for me. I still like to eat it though.
Great. I think that's a good place to end our Q&A. That being said, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much again, Eduardo.